My name is Mason Redden, and I'm about to tell you how my 42nd birthday became the night I learned that revenge isn't a dish best served cold, it's best served immediately, methodically, and with witnesses. The living room buzzed with familiar voices and clinking glasses. Lyra had insisted on throwing this party, inviting her lawyer friends, her book club cronies, and half the neighborhood. I should have known something was wrong when she spent more time arranging the guest list than asking what I wanted for my birthday. I stood near the kitchen island, watching my wife of 18 years work the room like she was campaigning for office. Lyra Redden commanded attention wherever she went. Sharp suit, sharper tongue, and the kind of confidence that made people either love her or fear her. Tonight, she wore that predatory smile I'd grown to recognize over the years. "Mason!" called out Derek Lyman, Lyra's law firm partner, raising his wine glass. "Happy birthday, buddy. You're lucky to have a woman like Lyra keeping you in line." The group chuckled. Derek had always rubbed me the wrong way. Too much cologne, too many teeth in his smile, and the way he looked at my wife when he thought I wasn't watching. Tonight, he stood closer to Lyra than necessary, their shoulders touching as they shared some private joke. "Thanks, Derek," I replied, keeping my voice neutral, though I've never needed much keeping in line. Tara DeWitt, Lyra's best friend since law school, laughed from across the room. "Oh, please, Mason. Every man needs guidance. That's what wives are for, right, girls?" A chorus of agreement rose from the women. Mrs. Feldman from next door nodded enthusiastically, her wine glass already half empty. My daughter Sammy, home from college for the weekend, rolled her eyes and continued scrolling through her phone. I owned a small auto repair shop on the outskirts of town. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills and kept me grounded in reality. These people lived in a world of billable hours and legal maneuvering that felt foreign to me. I preferred engines to arguments, grease under my fingernails to damage done by conflict. Lyra clinked her knife against her wine glass, calling for attention. The room gradually quieted, all eyes turning toward her. She stood in the center of the living room, looking radiant under the chandelier light. "Everyone, I want to thank you for coming tonight to celebrate Mason's birthday," she began, her voice carrying that courtroom authority. "But before we continue, I think it's time we talked about some changes in this household." My stomach tightened. Something in her tone set off every alarm bell in my head. "You see," Lyra continued, her smile growing wider, "I've been thinking a lot about our marriage lately, about how we've grown apart, how we want different things, and I've decided it's time for new rules." The room fell silent, except for the soft jazz playing from the speakers. I watched Lyra's face, searching for any hint that this was some elaborate joke. "What kind of rules?" asked Jennifer Morrison from Lyra's book club, leaning forward with obvious interest. Lyra's eyes found mine across the room. "The kind that acknowledge we're both adults with adult needs, the kind that give us both the freedom to explore what makes us happy, without the constraints of outdated expectations." My hands clenched at my sides. She was talking about an open marriage, at my birthday party, in front of our friends and neighbors. "Lyra," I said quietly, my voice cutting through the murmur of confused whispers. "That's an interesting announcement. I thought you'd understand, Mason. We've been together since we were practically kids. Don't you think it's time we experienced what else life has to offer?" Derek shifted uncomfortably, suddenly very interested in his wine glass. Tara watched the exchange with barely concealed excitement, like she was witnessing a particularly juicy episode of reality television. I pulled out my phone, keeping my movements calm and deliberate. "You know what, Lyra? You're absolutely right. It is time for new rules." I connected my phone to the smart TV, the screen lighting up with my home screen. Every eye in the room focused on the display. "The thing about rules," I continued, navigating to a folder labeled Insurance, "is that they should be discussed beforehand, not announced as ultimatums." I selected a video file. Lyra's face appeared on the screen, sitting in our bedroom just 3 days earlier. The timestamp showed 2:47 a.m. "I can't keep pretending anymore," Video Lyra said to someone off camera. "Mason is holding me back. I need to be with someone who understands ambition, who can match my energy, someone like you." The room erupted in shocked whispers. Real-time Lyra went pale, her wine glass trembling in her hand. "Turn that off," she hissed. "But we're just getting to the good part," I replied, advancing the video to where she outlined her plan to gradually introduce the concept of an open marriage, starting with tonight's announcement. "This is a violation of privacy." Derek suddenly found his voice. I paused the video and looked directly at him. "Funny thing about privacy, Derek. My wife installed these security cameras herself last year. Said she wanted to keep an eye on things while she worked late. I just never mentioned that they record audio, too." The silence stretched until Mrs. Feldman cleared her throat. "Well, this is certainly more excitement than I expected tonight." I opened another app on my phone, this one connected to our smart home system. "You're right about new rules, Lyra. So here are mine. Effective immediately. All shared access codes are revoked. The joint checking account has been frozen pending legal review. And since you want freedom so badly, you'll have it, starting tonight. You can't just kick me out of my own house." Lyra's composure finally cracked. "Actually, I can. The lease is in my name only. Always has been. You insisted on it for tax purposes, remember?" I pulled up another document on my phone, a formal eviction notice, already filed with the county clerk's office. 30 days is the legal requirement," I continued. "But since you seem eager to start your new life, I've arranged for the locks to be changed at midnight. Your personal belongings will be boxed and available for pickup tomorrow." Tara stepped forward, her face flushed with anger. "You're being completely unreasonable, Mason. Lyra was trying to save your marriage." "By sleeping with Derek?" I queued up another video file. "Because I have about 6 hours of footage that suggests this conversation started long before tonight." Derek set down his wine glass and headed for the door. "I think I should leave." "Actually, Derek, you should stay. This concerns you too." I switched to a different folder on my phone. See, while Lyra was planning her grand announcement, I was doing some planning of my own. The screen now showed a legal document, a formal complaint filed with the State Bar Association regarding inappropriate relationships between law firm partners and the potential conflict of interest it created for their clients. That's my signature," Derek stammered, staring at the screen. "From the partnership agreement you signed when you joined Lyra's firm. The one that specifically prohibits romantic relationships between partners due to the potential for compromised judgment and client harm." Lyra lunged toward my phone, but I stepped back smoothly. "Don't worry. I've already sent copies to the appropriate parties. Your law firm's ethics committee should receive them first thing Monday morning." "You vindictive piece of—" Lyra caught herself, glancing around at the shocked faces of our guests. "I prefer thorough," I corrected. "See, while you were busy planning your new life, I was protecting mine. Every conversation, every late-night meeting, every lie you told about working overtime, it's all documented." I switched back to the home screen and opened a group chat that included everyone in the room. "I've taken the liberty of sharing some highlights with everyone here tonight. Consider it my birthday gift to myself, the gift of honesty." Phones around the room began buzzing with notifications. I watched faces change as people opened the messages and saw the evidence I'd compiled over the past 3 months. Mrs. Feldman gasped audibly. "Oh my goodness, Lyra, these text messages—" "Those are private," Lyra snapped. "Not anymore," I replied calmly. "Privacy ended when you decided to humiliate me in front of our friends. Now everyone gets to see who you really are." Sammy looked up from her phone, her face a mixture of shock and disappointment. "Mom, is this real? Did you really say all these things about Dad?" Lyra's eyes darted around the room, seeking allies, but finding only judgment and discomfort. This is all taken out of context. Mason is twisting everything to make me look bad. I don't need to twist anything, I said, pulling up one final document. Your own words are damning enough. The screen displayed a series of emails between Lyra and Derek discussing their relationship and their plans to gradually push me out of the picture. The timestamps went back 8 months. 8 months, I announced to the room. That's how long my wife has been planning to replace me while pretending everything was fine. The party guests began gathering their things, the festive atmosphere completely poisoned. One by one, they offered awkward goodbyes and hurried toward the door. Derek tried one last time to salvage the situation. Mason, I think we should all sit down and discuss this like adults. The time for discussion ended when you started sleeping with my wife, I replied. Now it's time for consequences. As the last guest left, only Lyra, Sammy, and I remained in the living room. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. You've destroyed everything, Lyra whispered, tears finally starting to flow. No, I corrected. I've simply revealed what was already destroyed. You just wanted to control how and when it happened. At exactly midnight, I heard the soft click of the smart locks engaging with their new codes. Lyra's key would no longer work. Pack a bag, I told her. You can stay at a hotel tonight. Tomorrow, we'll arrange for you to collect your things. As she headed upstairs, I turned to Sammy, who sat staring at her phone with tears in her eyes. I'm sorry you had to see this, I said softly. She looked up at me with a mixture of hurt and confusion. How long have you known? 3 months. I hired a private investigator when the late nights became too frequent and the explanations too convenient. Why didn't you just talk to her? Maybe you could have worked it out. I sat down beside my daughter, feeling the weight of the evening settling on my shoulders. Some betrayals can't be worked out, Sammy. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. The sound of Lyra's footsteps on the stairs interrupted our conversation. She appeared with a suitcase and her purse, her makeup smeared, but her spine still straight. This isn't over, Mason, she said from the doorway. I looked at her, really looked at her, for what I knew would be the last time as my wife. Yes, it is. It's been over for 8 months. Tonight we just made it official. After she left, I sat alone in my living room, surrounded by the debris of the party and the wreckage of my marriage. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and complications, anger and recriminations. But tonight, for the first time in months, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Peace. The truth, I realized, really could set you free, even when it hurt like hell. The next morning brought rain and reality in equal measure. I woke up on the couch where I'd fallen asleep around 3 a.m., my neck stiff and my phone buzzing with missed calls. 17 from Lyra, 9 from Derek, and surprisingly, 3 from my old mentor, Gus Kowalski. I stumbled to the kitchen and started the coffee maker, watching the rain streak down the windows. The house felt different without Lyra's presence, quieter, but also somehow lighter, like a pressure I hadn't realized I was carrying had finally lifted. My phone rang again. Lyra. What do you want? I answered. We need to talk. Her voice was hoarse, probably from crying or yelling, maybe both. We talked last night in front of witnesses. Mason, please. I made mistakes, but what you did was cruel and vindictive. We can work through this if you'll just... Stop. I cut her off. There's no working through 8 months of lies and planning to replace me. There's only moving forward. You can't just throw away 18 years of marriage. I poured coffee into my favorite mug, the one Sammy made me in high school pottery class. I didn't throw it away, Lyra. You did. I just cleaned up the mess. The line went quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice had changed, become colder, more calculating. You have no idea what you've started, Mason. I'm a lawyer. I know how to fight. And I'm a mechanic. I know how to fix things that are broken and scrap things that can't be saved. Guess which category our marriage falls into. I hung up and immediately called Gus. He answered on the first ring. Mason, boy, what the hell happened last night? Tara DeWitt called me at 6 this morning, ranting about some video you showed at your birthday party. Gus owned the garage where I'd learned my trade 20 years ago. He'd sold it to me when he retired, but still came around most days to drink coffee and offer unsolicited advice. He was also one of the few people who'd never been impressed by Lyra's legal credentials. Lyra announced she wanted an open marriage. I announced I wanted a divorce. She didn't take it well. And the video? Security footage of her planning the whole thing with Derek Lyman. Turns out they've been conducting their own open marriage for 8 months. Gus whistled low. That woman always was too smart for her own good. What's your next move? Honestly, I hadn't thought past last night. I just wanted to stop her from controlling the narrative. Well, you better start thinking fast. Tara was making all kinds of threats about what Lyra's gonna do to you. Something about police reports and restraining orders. My stomach dropped. Of course Lyra wouldn't go quietly. She'd try to reframe the situation, make herself the victim and me the aggressor. I need to get to the shop, I said. Can you meet me there in an hour? Already on my way. I showered, dressed, and drove through the rain to Redden Auto Repair. The shop sat on a corner lot in the older part of town, surrounded by other small businesses that had somehow survived the corporate invasion of the past decade. It wasn't much to look at. A converted gas station with 3 bays and an office that smelled like motor oil and coffee. But it was mine. Gus was already there when I arrived, sitting in the office with a cup of coffee and a grim expression. We got problems, he said without preamble. What kind of problems? He handed me his phone, opened to the local Facebook community page. Lyra had posted a long message about emotional manipulation and financial control in our marriage. She painted herself as a victim of psychological manipulation, claiming I'd isolated her from friends and monitored her every move. She's good, I admitted, scrolling through the comments. I'll give her that. Gets worse. Look at the police blotter. He pulled up another page on his phone. There it was, a report filed at 7:23 a.m. claiming harassment and potential domestic violence. No specific incidents mentioned, just vague allegations designed to create a paper trail. She's building a case, I realized, making me look like the abusive husband who finally snapped. Question is, what are you going to do about it? I leaned back in my chair, thinking. Lyra was playing the long game, using her legal training to construct a narrative that would discredit anything I said or did. She was counting on people's natural sympathy for a woman claiming abuse and their willingness to believe that a blue-collar guy like me might have a temper problem. I'm going to give her exactly what she's asking for, I said finally. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and opened the folder of evidence I'd compiled. She wants to play victim? Fine. But victims don't usually have 8 months' worth of premeditated planning documented in their own words. I spent the next hour uploading everything to a cloud storage account and creating shareable links. The security footage, the emails, the text messages, the timeline I'd constructed showing exactly how long the affair had been going on, all of it organized and time-stamped. Then I did something Lyra wouldn't expect from a simple mechanic. I went on the offensive. I created a detailed response to her Facebook post, not with anger or accusations, but with facts. I included links to the evidence, timestamps of her own words, and a simple challenge. I invite anyone who reads this to review the evidence and decide for themselves who's telling the truth. Within minutes, the comments on her post began changing tone. People who had initially offered sympathy started asking uncomfortable questions. Why were there recordings? What did the timestamps mean? Who was Derek Lyman and why did his name keep appearing in the messages? My phone rang. Derek. Mason, you need to take that post down immediately. Hello to you too, Derek. How's your morning going? This is defamation. Lyra could sue you for everything you own. With what evidence? Everything I posted came from her own devices, her own words. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation, Derek. I thought a lawyer would know that. You're destroying innocent people's reputations. I'm sharing facts. If those facts destroy reputations, maybe the reputations weren't worth preserving. I hung up and turned to Gus, who was reading the Facebook comments with obvious amusement. You just poked the bear, he warned. Good. Bears are dangerous when they're hiding in the woods, less so when they're out in the open where everyone can see them. The rest of the morning brought a steady stream of calls and messages. Some supportive, some critical, but all engaged. The story was spreading beyond our immediate social circle, picked up by local gossip networks and shared among people who didn't even know us personally. Around noon, Mrs. Feldman called. Mason, dear, I just wanted you to know that several of us from the neighborhood have been talking, and we think you did the right thing last night. Thank you, Mrs. Feldman. That means a lot. That Lyra always was too big for her britches, if you ask me, and that Derek fellow, I never trusted him. Too much cologne and too many teeth. I couldn't help but smile. You're very perceptive. Honey, I've been married for 47 years. You learned to spot the snakes. After she hung up, I felt something I hadn't expected. Validation. Not everyone was buying Lyra's victim narrative. People who knew us, who had watched our marriage from the outside, were seeing through her carefully constructed story. But I knew this was just the beginning. Lyra wouldn't give up easily, and she had resources I didn't. Legal knowledge, professional connections, and the ability to make my life very complicated if she chose to. My phone buzzed with a text from Sammy. Dad, Mom's lawyer called. Says you need to stop posting things online or they'll get a restraining order. Is that true? I stared at the message for a long moment. Lyra was using our daughter as a messenger, trying to pressure me through the one person whose opinion I actually cared about. I called Sammy instead of texting back. Hey kiddo, how are you holding up? Confused mostly. Mom's staying at Aunt Linda's and she's really upset. She says you're trying to ruin her career. And what do you think? Sammy was quiet for a moment. I think I don't know what to believe anymore. The things in those messages, Dad. Did Mom really say all that stuff about you? Yes, she did. I have the original files if you want to verify the timestamps yourself. Why didn't you tell me what was happening? Because it wasn't your burden to carry. You're my daughter, not my therapist or my ally in a marriage war. But now I'm stuck in the middle anyway. She was right, and I hated that. This was exactly what I'd been trying to avoid, dragging Sammy into the mess that Lyra and I had made of our marriage. You're not stuck anywhere, I said firmly. You're 18 years old with your whole life ahead of you. Whatever happens between your mother and me, it doesn't change the fact that we both love you. Even after everything that's happened? Especially after everything that's happened. You're the best thing your mother and I ever did together, Sammy. That doesn't change just because we failed at everything else. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my office, listening to the rain on the roof and the distant sound of traffic. Gus had left to run errands, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the growing realization that I'd started something I couldn't easily stop. My computer chimed with a new email notification. The sender was someone I didn't recognize, but the subject line made my stomach clench. Regarding your recent social media posts. I opened it reluctantly. Mr. Redden, my name is Patricia Moss, and I represent Lyra Redden in matrimonial matters. Your recent online activities constitute harassment and defamation of my client. If these posts are not removed within 24 hours, we will be forced to seek legal remedies, including but not limited to restraining orders and damages for harm to my client's professional reputation. Please govern yourself accordingly. I forwarded the email to my own lawyer, a guy named Bill Henderson, who handled my business contracts and the occasional customer dispute. He called me back within an hour. Mason, I've reviewed what you posted, and honestly, I don't see any legal issues. Everything appears to be factual and well documented. But I have to ask, are you prepared for this to get ugly? Define ugly. Restraining orders, custody battles, asset freezes, professional sabotage. Lyra's a lawyer, and she's embarrassed. That's a dangerous combination. I thought about that for a moment. Bill, let me ask you something. If someone breaks into your house, do you worry about whether fighting back might make them angry? I see your point. But this isn't a break-in, Mason. This is a marriage ending, and there are rules about how these things are supposed to go. Whose rules? The same rules that say I should have quietly accepted my wife's announcement that she wanted to sleep around? The rules that say I should have pretended not to know about her 8-month affair? Fair enough, but just remember, when you wrestle with pigs, you both get dirty, but the pig enjoys it. After he hung up, I sat staring at Patricia Moss's email. 24 hours to remove the posts or face legal action. It was a classic intimidation tactic, designed to make me back down and let Lyra control the narrative. Instead, I did something that would have made my old shop teacher proud. I doubled down. I created a new post, this one addressed directly to Patricia Moss and anyone else who might be considering legal action. In it, I outlined my willingness to defend every statement I'd made in court, under oath, with the full weight of evidence behind me. I welcomed the opportunity to have everything examined by a judge and jury. Then I added one final paragraph. To those who think the truth should be silenced to protect someone's reputation, I ask you this: whose reputation is more important, the person who was betrayed or the person who did the betraying? Within an hour, the post had been shared 50 times. By evening, it had reached several hundred shares and spawned dozens of comment threads debating everything from marriage vows to social media ethics. I'd started a conversation that was much bigger than just my failed marriage. I'd touched a nerve about honesty, accountability, and the price of keeping secrets to protect the guilty. And somewhere in the city, I knew Lyra was realizing that her small-town mechanic husband wasn't going to roll over and play victim to her narrative. The real fight was just beginning. 3 days after my birthday party, I discovered that Lyra had been busier than I'd imagined. I arrived at the shop Monday morning to find 2 one-star reviews posted overnight on Google, both claiming I'd overcharged for shoddy work and had been aggressive and unstable with customers. The reviews were obviously fake. The supposed customers had never brought their cars to my shop, but they were well written and detailed enough to seem credible. Classic Lyra. Precise, calculated, and designed for maximum damage. Gus arrived an hour later with coffee and a grim expression that was becoming his standard look lately. More bad news? I asked. Your banker called my house this morning. Apparently, someone's been asking questions about your business loan, wondering if you're current on payments and whether there might be any irregularities in your books. I set down my wrench harder than necessary. Let me guess. Concerned citizen looking out for the community's financial institutions? Something like that. Also got a call from Pete Martinez at the parts supplier. Says someone contacted him claiming to be from the State Revenue Department, asking about your account and whether you've been paying sales tax properly. The pattern was becoming clear. Lyra was conducting a systematic campaign to undermine my business, using her legal knowledge to probe for any potential vulnerabilities. She was looking for leverage, something she could use to force me into a more favorable position. She's good, I admitted. Going after my livelihood instead of just my reputation. Question is, what are you going to do about it? I thought about that while I finished the brake job I'd been working on. Lyra was playing a professional game, using tactics that would be familiar to any lawyer engaged in hardball litigation. She was trying to pressure me into backing down, removing my posts, and accepting whatever settlement she was willing to offer. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She was assuming I'd play by her rules. Around noon, I drove across town to Pinnacle Legal Associates, the law firm where Lyra and Derek worked. The building was all glass and steel, designed to intimidate anyone who wasn't comfortable in corporate environments. I parked my work truck, still bearing the Redden Auto Repair logo, right in front of the main entrance. The receptionist, a young woman with perfect makeup and a practiced smile, looked up as I approached her desk. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to see Derek Lyman. Tell him Mason Redden is here about our mutual friend." She made a phone call, spoke quietly for a moment, then hung up with a confused expression. "Mr. Lyman says he's not available." "That's fine, I'll wait." I settled into one of the expensive leather chairs in the lobby and pulled out my phone. The law firm had free Wi-Fi, which seemed appropriate given what I was about to do. I opened the video app on my phone and started recording. "This is Mason Redden, and I'm sitting in the lobby of Pinnacle Legal Associates, waiting to speak with Derek Lyman about his relationship with my wife, Lyra Redden. It's currently 12:17 p.m. on Monday, and I've been told Mr. Lyman is unavailable." I panned the camera around the lobby, showing the firm's name on the wall and the receptionist's increasingly uncomfortable expression. For those following this story, you should know that Mr. Lyman and my wife have been conducting an affair for 8 months while working together as law partners. This creates obvious conflicts of interest for their clients, who have a right to know that their legal representative's judgment might be compromised by personal relationships. The elevator dinged, and Derek emerged looking like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world. He wore his usual expensive suit, but his confident demeanor had been replaced by obvious anxiety. "Mason, what are you doing here?" I stood up, still recording. "Derek, thanks for making time. I wanted to discuss your relationship with my wife and how it might affect your professional obligations." "Turn that camera off immediately. This is a public space, Derek. I have every right to record here." The receptionist had picked up her phone, probably calling security. Other people in the lobby, clients, employees, delivery personnel, had stopped to watch the confrontation. "You're creating a scene," Derek hissed. "I'm asking legitimate questions about professional ethics. Unless you think there's something inappropriate about your relationship with Lyra." Derek's face flushed red. "My personal life is none of your business." "Actually, it became my business when you started sleeping with my wife. And it's your client's business when your personal relationships compromise your professional judgment." A security guard appeared from a side hallway, but Derek waved him off. He was smart enough to realize that having me forcibly removed would only make the situation worse. "What do you want?" Derek asked quietly. "I want you to stop helping Lyra harass my business. The fake reviews, the inquiries to my banker and suppliers, it ends now." "I don't know what you're talking about." I smiled and pulled up one of the fake reviews on my phone, holding it where the camera could see it. "This review was posted from an IP address registered to this law firm. Want me to show the technical details, or would you prefer to explain how that happened?" Derek's composure finally cracked. "You can't prove anything." "Actually, I can. I've got server logs, IP traces, and timestamps that put the posts right here in this building. Plus, the writing style matches other documents I've seen from this firm. Very distinctive use of legal terminology in what's supposed to be a customer complaint." I was bluffing about most of the technical details, but Derek didn't know that. His legal training made him cautious about making claims he couldn't support, and his guilty conscience made him assume I had more evidence than I actually did. "Fine," he said quietly. "I'll talk to Lyra about backing off your business." "I'm not done yet." I turned back to the camera. "I also want to discuss the ethics complaint I filed with the State Bar Association regarding your relationship with Ms. Redden and the potential conflicts of interest it creates for your mutual clients." "You filed a what?" Derek's voice cracked. "Professional misconduct complaint. Lawyers aren't supposed to let personal relationships compromise their professional judgment. When law partners are sleeping together, it raises serious questions about their ability to represent clients objectively." This wasn't a bluff. I'd spent Sunday afternoon researching legal ethics rules and filing a formal complaint with the state bar. I'd included all the evidence of their relationship and raised questions about how it might affect their client's interests. That's vindictive and frivolous, Derek stammered. Maybe, but the state bar will investigate anyway. They have to. And during that investigation, all your clients will be notified that their legal representation might be compromised. Some might choose to find new lawyers. Some might file malpractice suits. Some might demand fee refunds. Derek went pale. You're trying to destroy our careers. I'm trying to protect the public from lawyers whose personal drama might affect their professional judgment. Seems like a public service to me. I ended the recording and uploaded it to social media before Derek could react. Within minutes, it was being shared and commented on by people who'd been following the story. The elevator dinged again, and Lyra emerged, looking furious. She'd obviously been watching the confrontation from upstairs and had finally decided to intervene. Mason, this is harassment. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. I'm in a public place, exercising my right to free speech and asking legitimate questions about professional ethics. She pulled out her phone, but I could see the hesitation in her eyes. Calling the police would create an official record of the confrontation, complete with my allegations about their relationship and the ethics complaint. It would also generate more publicity for a story she was trying to contain. What do you want? She asked finally. I want you to stop trying to destroy my business. I want you to stop using our daughter as a messenger, and I want you to accept that your actions have consequences. I'm not going to let you ruin my career because you're bitter about our marriage ending. I'm not ruining anything, Lyra. I'm just making sure people have accurate information about who you really are. The lobby had filled with more people, all pretending to go about their business while obviously listening to our conversation. I could see phones out, people recording their own versions of the confrontation. This isn't over, Lyra said quietly. No, it's not. But it's not going the way you planned either. I walked out of the building and drove back to my shop, feeling something I hadn't experienced in months: momentum. For the first time since discovering Lyra's affair, I felt like I was setting the pace instead of reacting to her moves. But I also knew I'd escalated the situation significantly. Lyra wouldn't take this public humiliation quietly, and she had resources I couldn't match if she decided to really go to war. My phone rang as I pulled into the shop parking lot. Sammy. Dad, what did you do? Mom's crying and screaming, and Aunt Linda is talking about restraining orders and harassment charges. I asked some questions about professional ethics. Your mother didn't like the questions. She says you're trying to destroy her career. I'm trying to stop her from destroying mine. Sammy was quiet for a moment. This is really ugly, Dad. Yes, it is. And I'm sorry you're caught in the middle of it. Can't you just, I don't know, get divorced like normal people? Normal people don't announce open marriages at birthday parties, kiddo. Once your mother decided to make this public, she gave up the right to control how public it gets. After we hung up, I sat in my truck for a few minutes, watching the rain start again. I thought about Sammy's question, why couldn't we just get divorced like normal people? The answer was simple. Because Lyra had never done anything like a normal person. She'd planned our wedding like a military campaign, managed our finances like a corporate merger, and apparently ended our marriage like a hostile takeover. She'd counted on me being the normal person, the one who would quietly accept whatever she decided and go along with her plans. She'd miscalculated. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the video from the law firm. You've got more guts than most people give you credit for. Keep fighting. A friend. Then another. My ex-wife tried the same garbage when I divorced her. Don't let them intimidate you. And another. Lyra Redden represented my ex-husband in our divorce. She's ruthless. Watch your back. I was becoming a symbol of something larger than my own marriage. the guy who refused to be quietly discarded, who fought back when powerful people tried to control the narrative. It was a role I'd never asked for, but one I was apparently well suited to play. As I walked into my shop, Gus looked up from the coffee pot with a knowing grin. "So," he said, "how'd that go?" "I think I just declared war on the entire legal profession." About time someone did. By Thursday, the story had taken on a life of its own. Local news had picked it up, framing it as a story about social media, divorce, and public accountability. I'd been contacted by 3 different reporters, 2 podcast hosts, and someone claiming to represent a reality TV show. I declined all the media requests. This wasn't about fame or attention, it was about truth and consequences. But I couldn't control how other people chose to engage with the story. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Jennifer Morrison from Lyra's book club. She called me Thursday evening while I was closing up the shop. "Mason, I need to tell you something about Tara DeWitt." "What about her?" "She's not who you think she is. None of us are supposed to know this, but Tara has been feeding Lyra poison about you for years." I sat down heavily in my desk chair. "What kind of poison?" "Little things at first. Comments about how you were holding Lyra back, how she deserved better, how a smart woman like her shouldn't be tied down to someone without ambition." "And Lyra listened to this?" "Tara's very persuasive. She has this way of making suggestions that don't sound like suggestions. She'd say things like, 'I just worry that Lyra isn't reaching her full potential,' or 'some men are intimidated by successful women.'" My mind was racing. "How long has this been going on?" "Years, but it got worse about a year ago, right around the time Derek joined the firm." "What do you mean, worse?" Jennifer hesitated. "Tara started pushing the idea that Lyra should explore her options. She'd bring up articles about open marriages, talk about couples who had evolved beyond traditional constraints, suggest that maybe Lyra's marriage problems weren't really marriage problems but freedom problems." The pieces were falling into place. "Tara orchestrated this whole thing." "I think so." "And Mason, there's something else. Something I probably should have told you a long time ago." "What?" "Tara used to work for you, didn't she? About 5 years ago?" I felt the bottom drop out of my stomach. "How did you know that?" "Because she told us. She said you fired her unfairly, that you were paranoid and controlling, and that she'd never forgiven you for it." The memory came flooding back. Tara DeWitt had worked as my bookkeeper for about 6 months, 5 years ago. I'd caught her skimming money from customer payments. Not much, maybe a few $100s over several months, but enough to notice when I started tracking the discrepancies. I'd fired her quietly, without pressing charges, thinking I was being merciful. I'd never told Lyra the real reason, just said it wasn't working out. "She's been planning this for 5 years, I said, more to myself than to Jennifer. "Planning what?" "Revenge. She couldn't get back at me directly, so she went after my marriage instead." After Jennifer hung up, I sat in my office trying to process this revelation. Tara hadn't just been Lyra's friend offering bad advice. She'd been conducting a long-term campaign of psychological manipulation, slowly poisoning my wife against me over the course of years. The affair with Derek wasn't just about Lyra wanting freedom or excitement. It was the culmination of a carefully orchestrated plan to destroy my marriage, engineered by someone with a 5-year grudge and the patience to see it through. I needed proof. I spent Friday morning going through old files, looking for anything related to Tara's employment. I found her personnel file, including the documentation I'd kept about the missing money and the circumstances of her termination. Then I did something I probably should have done years ago. I called the other businesses where she'd worked since leaving my shop. The pattern was disturbing. 3 different employers, 3 different stories of financial irregularities, and 3 different reasons why they'd chosen not to press charges. Tara was a professional manipulator who specialized in small-scale theft and long-term grudges. But I needed more than just a pattern of suspicious behavior. I needed evidence of her role in destroying my marriage. I called Jennifer back. "I need a favor," I said. "And it might be risky." "What kind of favor?" "I need you to get Tara talking about me and Lyra. Record the conversation if you can. I think she'll reveal more than she should if she thinks she's talking to a sympathetic audience." "Mason, I don't know if I can—" "Jennifer, this woman has been systematically destroying my family for 5 years. She used Lyra as a weapon against me, and she's probably already looking for her next target. How long before she decides one of your marriages needs her special attention?" That got through to her. "What do you want me to do?" "Invite her for coffee. Tell her you're worried about the situation with me and Lyra, that you think I might be dangerous. Get her talking about her history with me and her role in advising Lyra. And if she admits to something, then we'll have the final piece of the puzzle." Saturday morning, Jennifer called Tara and arranged to meet for coffee at a local cafe. I sat in my truck across the street, watching through the window as they settled into a corner booth. Jennifer had agreed to record the conversation on her phone, but I wanted to be close enough to intervene if things went wrong. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see Tara's body language becoming more animated as the conversation progressed. She was leaning forward, gesturing emphatically, clearly enjoying the opportunity to discuss her success in manipulating the situation. After about an hour, Jennifer texted me, "Got it. Meet me at your shop in 20 minutes." Back at the shop, Jennifer played the recording on her phone. Tara's voice was clear and unmistakably proud. "I've been working on Lyra for years," she said on the recording. "Mason never appreciated what he had, and I knew eventually she'd figure that out. I just helped speed up the process. But the affair with Derek, that was Lyra's choice, wasn't it?" Jennifer's voice asked. "Of course, but I introduced them at the right time, in the right way. I made sure Lyra was feeling particularly undervalued at home when Derek started showing interest. Timing is everything in these situations." "You make it sound like you planned the whole thing." Tara laughed. "Not planned, exactly. More like guided. Lyra needed to see that she had options, that she didn't have to settle for a marriage that wasn't fulfilling her potential." "And Mason never suspected?" "Mason's not as smart as he thinks he is. He fired me 5 years ago over some ridiculous bookkeeping issue, and he never imagined I might hold a grudge. Men like him never think women like me are capable of long-term strategy." There it was, the admission I needed. Tara had orchestrated my wife's affair as revenge for being fired 5 years ago. "What happens now?" Jennifer asked. "Now Lyra gets her freedom, Derek gets what he wants, and Mason gets what he deserves. Everyone wins except the person who should lose." "And if Mason fights back?" "He's a mechanic, Jennifer. What's he going to do against a lawyer and her allies? He'll make some noise, maybe cause some temporary embarrassment, but eventually he'll give up and accept whatever settlement Lyra offers." I stopped the recording. She underestimated me. "What are you going to do with this?" I thought about that for a moment. The recording proved that Tara had manipulated my marriage for revenge, but it also revealed something else. She was still actively working against me, still convinced that I was too stupid and powerless to fight back effectively. I'm going to give her the chance to prove how smart she really is. That evening, I uploaded the recording to social media along with a detailed post explaining Tara's role in destroying my marriage. I included the documentation of her employment history, the pattern of financial irregularities at her previous jobs, and the timeline showing how her manipulation had escalated over 5 years. But I also did something else. I tagged every member of Lyra's social circle, every client of the law firm, and every local business owner who might have encountered Tara in her various roles around town. The response was immediate and devastating. Within hours, other people started sharing their own stories about Tara. A restaurant owner who'd caught her stealing from the tip jar. A nonprofit director who'd discovered missing donations after Tara volunteered as treasurer. a neighbor who'd suspected her of spreading malicious gossip, but had never been able to prove it. The pattern was clear. Tara DeWitt was a professional manipulator who specialized in inserting herself into other people's lives and then systematically destroying them from within. My phone rang around midnight. Lyra. You need to take down that post about Tara immediately. Why? Is something in it untrue? You're destroying an innocent woman's reputation based on hearsay and speculation. I'm sharing documented facts about someone who spent 5 years manipulating you into destroying our marriage. If her reputation gets damaged, maybe she should have thought about that before she decided to play puppet master with our lives. Tara didn't make me have an affair, Mason. That was my choice. But she spent 5 years making sure you'd make that choice, didn't she? 5 years of little comments, subtle suggestions, carefully planted doubts about our marriage and my worth as a husband. Lyra was quiet for a long moment. Even if that's true, it doesn't change anything. Our marriage was already in trouble. Our marriage was in trouble because someone was actively sabotaging it, and you were too proud to admit you were being manipulated. So what happens now? I looked out the window of my shop at the empty street, thinking about everything that had happened over the past week. Now you decide whether you want to keep being Tara's puppet, or whether you want to start taking responsibility for your own choices. And if I choose wrong, then you'll discover that your small-town mechanic husband is a lot smarter and more resourceful than either of you ever imagined. After she hung up, I sat alone in my office, surrounded by the tools and machinery that had been my refuge for 20 years. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new complications, and probably new attempts by Lyra and her allies to regain control of the narrative. But tonight, for the first time since this whole mess started, I felt like I understood the game that had been played against me, and I was ready to start playing by my own rules. Sunday morning brought an unexpected visitor, Derek Lyman, standing in the parking lot of my shop at 7 a.m., looking like he hadn't slept in days. I opened the door and leaned against the frame, coffee mug in hand. Little early for a social call, isn't it, Derek? We need to talk. About what? He glanced around nervously, as if expecting cameras or witnesses to emerge from the shadows. About ending this before it gets any worse. Worse for who? For everyone. You've made your point, Mason. Everyone knows about the affair, about Tara's manipulation, about everything. Can't we just move on? I studied his face, seeing the desperation behind his usual arrogance. What's really going on, Derek? Did your partners finally figure out that having their ethics complaint make the local news wasn't great for business? His shoulders sagged. 3 clients fired us this week. The state bar investigation is moving forward. And Tara's been calling me nonstop, demanding that I fix this somehow. Fix what? The consequences of your actions? Look, I know you hate me, and you have every right to. But this isn't just about me anymore. Lyra's career is ruined. The law firm might not survive the scandal. And for what? Revenge? I sipped my coffee, considering his words. You think this is about revenge? Isn't it? Derek, let me explain something to you. Revenge is what you do to hurt someone who wronged you. What I'm doing is called accountability. I'm making sure that people face the consequences of their choices. What's the difference? Revenge is personal. Accountability is justice. He ran his hands through his hair, messing up his usually perfect appearance. What do you want? Money? An apology? What will it take to make this stop? I want the truth. All of it. On the record. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and opened the recording app. I want you to tell me exactly how the affair started, what role Tara played in orchestrating it, and how long you've all been planning to push me out of the picture. I'm not going to incriminate myself. Then we have nothing to discuss. I started to close the door, but Derek grabbed the frame. Wait, what if I could prove that Tara manipulated all of us? That she's been playing games with more people than just you and Lyra? That got my attention. What kind of proof? Text messages, emails, recordings of phone calls where she laid out her plans. You recorded your conversations with Tara? Derek looked embarrassed. My phone automatically backs up all calls to the cloud. It's a security feature for the law firm. I never deleted anything. And these recordings show what exactly? Tara orchestrating everything. The affair, the timing of Lyra's announcement, even the fake reviews of your business. She's been pulling everyone's strings, including mine. I opened the door wider. Come in. For the next 2 hours, Derek played recordings and showed me text messages that painted a picture of manipulation that was even more extensive than I'd imagined. Tara hadn't just been working on Lyra. She'd been playing Derek too, convincing him that pursuing Lyra was his idea, while simultaneously feeding him information about my schedule, my habits, and my vulnerabilities. She knew exactly when you'd be out of town, Derek said, showing me a text message. She knew which nights Lyra worked late, which restaurants you never went to, even which hotels you'd never think to check. She was conducting surveillance. More than that, she was conducting a campaign. Look at this. He showed me a document on his phone, a detailed timeline that Tara had created, mapping out every step of the affair from first contact to Lyra's planned announcement at my birthday party. She planned the whole thing, I said, staring at the screen. Every detail. The birthday party announcement was supposed to be the final humiliation. You'd be caught off guard, embarrassed in front of your friends, and forced to accept whatever terms Lyra offered. Except I didn't react the way she expected. No, you didn't. And now she's panicking because her carefully laid plans are falling apart. I leaned back in my chair, processing this information. Why are you showing me this, Derek? What's in it for you? Honestly, I'm scared of her. When this started, I thought I was pursuing Lyra because I was attracted to her. Now I realize I was just another puppet in Tara's revenge fantasy. So what do you propose we do about it? Derek pulled up another file on his phone. Tara's planning something big for tonight. There's some kind of community event at the park, a summer festival or something. She's been organizing Lyra's friends to make a public statement about your harassment campaign. What kind of statement? They're going to paint you as an obsessive ex-husband who can't accept that his marriage is over. They'll claim you've been stalking Lyra, threatening her career, and using social media to orchestrate a harassment campaign. I felt my jaw clench. And you're telling me this because? Because I have recordings of Tara planning the whole thing. She's coaching them on what to say, how to present it to the media, even which local reporters to contact. She's trying to flip the narrative. Completely. By tomorrow morning, you'll be the villain in this story, and she'll be the concerned friend protecting an abuse victim. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the empty street. The summer festival Derek mentioned was an annual event. Live music, food vendors, and half the town gathered in the park for an evening of community celebration. It would be the perfect venue for a public spectacle. Derek, I want you to do something for me. What? I want you to call Tara and tell her that I've agreed to meet with Lyra tonight at the festival. Tell her I'm ready to apologize publicly and accept whatever terms she wants to offer. That's not true, is it? No, it's not. But Tara doesn't know that. What are you planning? I turned back to him, feeling something I hadn't experienced in years. The thrill of having a plan that my opponents couldn't see coming. I'm going to give Tara exactly what she wants, a public confrontation with lots of witnesses and media attention, but it's not going to go the way she expects. That evening, the park was crowded with families, couples, and groups of friends enjoying the warm weather and live music. Food trucks lined the main pathway, and a small stage had been set up near the pavilion where a local band was playing classic rock covers. I arrived alone, wearing my best jeans and a clean shirt, nothing fancy, but respectable. I could see Lyra near the stage, surrounded by her usual group of supporters. Tara stood beside her, clearly in command of the situation. Derek had done his job well. Tara was expecting me to approach them with an apology and a surrender. Instead, I walked to the band's equipment area and spoke quietly with the sound engineer. "I need to make an announcement," I told him. "It's important." "What kind of announcement?" I handed him a $50 bill. The kind that clears up some misunderstandings about recent events in our community. Money talks, even at community festivals. A few minutes later, the band finished their song, and the lead singer handed me the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mason Redden, and I want to thank you for your attention tonight." The crowd quieted, sensing that something unexpected was happening. I could see Lyra and Tara pushing through the crowd toward the stage, but they were too far away to stop me. Over the past week, there's been a lot of talk about my marriage, my divorce, and my character. Tonight, I want to share some information that might change how you think about this situation. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the sound system's Bluetooth. What you're about to hear are recordings of conversations between the people who orchestrated the destruction of my marriage. Tara's voice filled the park, clear and unmistakable. "I've been working on Lyra for years. Mason never appreciated what he had, and I knew eventually she'd figure that out. I just helped speed up the process." The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. I played the most damaging excerpts, Tara admitting to manipulation, Derek describing the planned timeline, and Lyra discussing how to frame me as an abusive husband. "The woman you just heard orchestrating this campaign is Tara DeWitt," I continued, pointing toward where she stood frozen in the crowd. 5 years ago, I fired her for stealing from my business. This entire situation, my wife's affair, the public humiliation, the attacks on my business, has been her revenge for facing consequences for her actions. Tara tried to push forward, shouting something about lies and defamation, but the crowd wasn't interested in her denials. They'd heard her own voice confessing to manipulation and orchestration. "I want to be clear about something," I said into the microphone. "I'm not the victim here. I'm a grown man who can handle his wife choosing someone else. But I won't stand by while someone destroys my family as part of a personal vendetta." I played one final recording, Tara explaining to Derek how she'd been guiding Lyra's decisions for years, feeding her resentment and pushing her toward choices that would ultimately destroy our marriage. "This is what manipulation looks like," I told the crowd. "Not anger, not violence, not dramatic confrontations, just patient, persistent psychological pressure applied by someone with a grudge and the skill to hide their true motives." I handed the microphone back to the band leader and walked off the stage. The crowd parted as I moved through them, some people nodding approval, others staring in shock at the revelations they'd just heard. Lyra intercepted me near the parking lot, her face pale and her hands shaking. "Mason, we need to talk." "No, we don't. We're done talking. Please, I know you hate me, but I don't hate you, Lyra. I pity you. You let someone else destroy your marriage, your career, and your reputation because you were too proud to admit you were being manipulated. What happens now?" I looked back at the crowd, where people were still discussing what they'd heard. Tara had disappeared, probably realizing that her carefully constructed plans had just collapsed in the most public way possible. "Now you live with the consequences of your choices. All of you." "And us? What about us?" "There is no us. There hasn't been for months, maybe years. Tonight just made it official." I walked to my truck and drove home, leaving behind the wreckage of my marriage and the woman who had been my wife for 18 years. The house was quiet when I arrived, but it didn't feel empty anymore. It felt clean, like a space that had been cleared of toxins and was finally ready for something new. My phone buzzed with messages, some supportive, some critical, some just curious about what would happen next. I turned it off and sat on my porch, listening to the distant sound of music from the festival and watching the stars appear in the clear summer sky. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and complications, paperwork and procedures. But tonight, for the first time in months, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Peace. The truth really could set you free, even when it hurt like hell. Even when it cost you everything you thought you wanted. Even when it left you alone with nothing but your integrity and the knowledge that you'd